Yeah, horror show probably would be putting it mildly. Like it was, I suppose before the game started, it really was the tour to hell with all the injuries, compounded by the likes of Jerry Flannery, getting injured in the Barbers game, and it really was. I mean, like a lot of people were saying that this Irish team had a great chance of going down there because the All Blacks were, as you said, coming off a poor Super 14, and they were also a young team that hadn't played together before. But what it comes to, like, international rugby really is all about quality and strength and depth. And I think we got a perfect example of it today. We have 5 or 6 key players who are missing. They have 5 or 6 key players who are missing. And look at the difference. They can bring in players of such a high quality and high calibre, and we can't. It's as simple as that. And that's really what it came down to today.
Yeah, how much do you think the All Blacks will take from today, David? I know they won't get too excited, but as you said, the strength and depth is certainly there, and I suppose the big name today was Israel Daggett, full back. He looked absolutely exceptional.
Yeah, I mean, we were like, every time the All Blacks scored a try, the camera panned up into where the New Zealand management team were singing, and Wayne Smith was shaking his head every time the All Blacks went over the line, and that to me really painted a picture of the way things were. The All Blacks will get nothing from today. It's as simple as that. I mean, they were looking for a test. They were looking to blood young players and give them a test of international rugby and what it's really like out there. And this wasn't a real test. When Jamie Heaslip got sent off for stupidity, really is the best way to describe it. That was the end of the game. I mean, even before that, Ireland were making silly passes. They were missing tackles, and they looked tired, and they looked out on their feet even before the game started.
Yeah, obviously, as you mentioned it there, Dave, Ireland were always up against it after Jamie Heaslip was sent off after only 16 minutes. But how much of a turning point was that in the overall context of the game? I mean, obviously, it was probably the main reason for the margin of the victory. But even before that, as you said, the Irish defence looked under a lot of pressure whenever New Zealand were on the attack. Yeah,
I mean, like Jamie Heaslip saying, it certainly was a turning point in terms of the score of the game. And when Ronan O'Gara was sin binned as well, I think they shipped 21 points in that 10-minute period, which really was the end of the game anyway. So it's going back again to the basics, like well before this game started, well before the tour was picked. I mean, it's as I said earlier on, it was described as the tour from hell. Like, we shouldn't have sent some of our more experienced players down there. It's as simple as that. Like the likes of O'Driscoll, O'Gara, John Hayes certainly. I know John Hayes pulled out before the game today, but he shouldn't have been down there. Like, these are key players. Brian O'Driscoll, key players to of us any chance of putting a good show together for the World Cup. And we have to protect these guys, and bringing them down there to New Zealand. You know, it's not on. France did it. They publicly came out and they said, we're arresting key players, we're leaving them at home, we're going to give the younger guys a chance. And if we did that today, if we gave younger guys like Scott Deasy, Ian Nagel, Duncan Williams a chance, put them out there, who cares if they got beaten? At least they'll know what level they need to be at come the World Cup time, and it would also give them a chance to put a foot in the door as such, and get a foot on the ladder in terms of getting up and playing international rugby.
Yeah, just going back as well, Dave, to the Heaslip sending off, it was such a major disappointment. I mean, going down there to face the All Blacks, Heaslip is one of the main guys we had been looking to take the game to New Zealand up front. We tell ourselves up here that he's one of the best back row forwards in the world. This would have been a great opportunity for him to prove that to the Southern Hemisphere teams, but then he went and ruined it with a moment of recklessness, really.
Yeah, and fairness to the lad, it's uncharacteristic of him. He is a very clean player. He's a hard player and a tough player, which everybody admires. Mm-hmm. But what he did really was built out of frustration and probably tiredness as well, as they're gone down in the back of a very long season, and probably a very disappointing season in the fact that none of the provinces brought home any silverware this year as well. So when they went out there, and as the first 10-15 minutes of the game developed, they knew they really weren't in the game, and it was a bit of frustration, and All Black came in over the top. I mean, and to draw the knee back on 2 occasions and make contact with him, isn't acceptable, but I would put it down to frustration and nothing else.
Yeah, and I suppose Ireland salvaged some bit of pride in the second half to a certain extent anyway. There were some decent individual performances. Maybe Andrew Trimble and Tony Buckley will be happy enough on an individual level. But what positives, Dave, if there are any, will Declan Kidney take from today?
I'd be honest with you, Paul, there is no positives. I mean, gone are the days, I thought, where we were going to be beaten by this scoreline because of professional rugby in the era that we're in now. You're correct in saying Trimble and Buckley had a fine game with the ball in hand, but it was unfortunate that there wasn't that many scrums in the game, mm-hmm. and that's been his downfall. So I don't think we can call him a world-class international player at this stage yet. We have to see him in the scrum situation, entire game is compiled of many scrums. So the positives out of the game, there are none. I mean, in games like this, as Declan Kidney said himself, it's a once-off situation. The score really is the end result, and the score reflected the game.
Yeah, you alluded to it there earlier on as well, David. You made the point with us a few weeks back that when Declan Kidney decided to bring a full-strength squad on the tour, that it was a bit of a risk, that perhaps he was trying to build some confidence ahead of the World Cup next year. But looking at the outcome today, do you think it's had the opposite effect? I mean, do you think it's backfired as such?
Yeah, I mean, international rugby is all about taking risks, and Declan Kidney would probably be a man I admire hugely for what he's done, and I was coached under the man and have great respect for him. He took a risk. It didn't pay off this time. It's as simple as that. It certainly has backfired. Like, the confidence will only get lower now. I mean, they've New Zealand Maoris next week, which is probably be a far more physical game that we saw this morning, followed then by the Australians. So, I mean, we lost John Muldoon today. I think he's got a broken hand. Mick O'Driscoll went off with a snapped hamstring. I honestly don't know what team we're going to have left to put out against the Australians, and that could unfortunately be another cricket score.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it is Australia in 2 weeks' time, Dave. They had a 10-point win over England earlier on today. It's hard, as you say, to kind of predict what's going to happen in that game, given that we don't know who's going to be available. But can you see an Ireland win in Brisbane?
No, absolutely not. No, and I honestly can't see them winning next week either. So like it'll be a run of maybe 5 or 6 losses in a row for this Irish side, which in terms of building confidence, isn't the greatest thing. And a lot of people saying, look, we've got a lot of time. We've got 17 matches left now till we actually play our first game in the World Cup. But we also have a Magners League. We also have a Heineken Cup. So the attrition rate again is going to be huge for next year. So that's why, as I said earlier on in the interview, is that we shouldn't have brought these players. They should be wrapped in cotton wool at this stage. The games they should play next year should be very specific. And I think it's going to be a very tough year for us next year. We've got Six Nations also. We've got New Zealand coming to us as well to play a test before the Six Nations. So the attrition rate is going to be huge. And if we keep on wheeling out our best 15, like the results today are going to become far more frequent. And it's going to be a sad sight for Irish rugby.
Okay, just very finally, Dave, while we have you on the line, the Heineken Cup draw made earlier this week, Munster drawn with Toulon, London Irish and the Ospreys. Looks like it'll be a very, very tricky campaign for Tony McGahan. Yeah, it's going to be extremely, extremely difficult. And I mean, like, we've signed a few players, and the players we've signed really are unknown. It seems every time we go to sign a player, Toulon must have Munster's phone book, because they go in and get them. Like, they were after Heyman the prop and George Smith. And Toulon just came in and blew them out of the water with massive offers of money. And that's the way the game has gone. And, God help us if this free-to-air comes off, because we're going to be down another 10 to 12 million. And players will go at that stage. They will get massive offers from France, and they'll have no option but to go, because, in fairness, rugby isn't like soccer. They've got a certain period of time to make a specific amount of money. And if they don't take these offers, their shortfall when they retire is going to be big.